Jess, we are back, and we are back in the conversation of Maslow's Mountain. I believe we're doing what part? We're doing like a 7-part series here of this one. That's what we're doing, right? This is part
We're
2?
doing a series. We're going to see how long we take it. I don't
Got
want
it.
to promise 7 parts, but I think that
This is a big
this
mountain.
conversation bears multiple episodes
Yes.
of specificity
Yep. Agreed.
because we have so much to say about it, and it truly is the anchor for success or the catalyst for failure in so many coaching businesses.
Well, it
So,
creates such clarity. So last episode, we talked about what is the actual mountain, right?
mhm.
And I want the listeners to continue to hear this as that. It is a mountain. It is a big Everest type mountain. And today we're going to talk about really and you've heard this, if you've listened to our podcast before, we love this word.
Mhm.
And this word, when you master this word, when you step into really, living full into understanding what yours is, it really brings so much clarity to a lot of things. And that is the payoff, right?
Right.
Just the actual payoff. And when that payoff is clear from your vantage point to your avatar's vantage point, this mountain gets a lot smaller.
It does. Well, it gets simpler to climb because your people feel more equipped and you are
Yes.
more equipped as their guide.
Yep.
And that right there is the key of, we talked about standing at the top and yelling down and maybe tossing somebody a rope, but not equipping them to climb. And
Right.
when you're clear on it, it changes everything. And so
And
that's
it
truly
does.
what we wanted to spend some time on today is focusing on the concept of payoff through the lens of Maslow.
That's right. So, by the way, I apologize. I've got like a little cold, but I don't get sick, Jess. So I don't know what's going on. I sound like I'm maybe a little nasally, uh, but just go with it. I mean, it is what it is. Adam Roach might be sick once every 365 days. So we're going to dive into what is the definition of the payoff. Or what truly is a payoff? And we know it very simply, Jess. It's the transformation. It's the transformation that you are going to bring to that said avatar. It's the transformation that you, eat, sleep, breathe. You know this payoff like the back of your hand, and you can speak to it all day long. That's what the payoff is.
Well, and that makes it so much easier than trying to share a list of products or services or deliverables or
Yeah.
something like that. When you can tell people, hey, this is how I solve your problem, this is the thing that's going to change in your life, you get back this, you feel this way, whatever it is, that is the thing that people are attracted to when it's all
Yeah.
said and done. They aren't attracted to a list of options or objects.
Yeah.
And so I love having this conversation because and putting it as our first conversation, not our last,
Right.
because you can build from there.
That's right. So I want the listeners to hear this part, because if you have this or have had this, you can actually hear what I'm about to say and then just stop listening to the podcast, because we've solved it all for you. And that is imposter syndrome. If you've had imposter syndrome, it's because you have no clarity on your payoff. It's because you don't know how to get your payoff. And quite frankly, you may be at the top of the mountain saying, oh my gosh, I could probably help someone get up here, but I don't even know how I got up here myself. And that truly is imposter syndrome, because you don't have clarity on this payoff. You don't know how to do the payoff. And so now you're stepping in this space saying, I need to be pounding my chest. This incredible coach, this silverback gorilla of accomplishing, when really you don't. You just have to know your payoff and you know how to get there, and you've done it before.
Well, confidence is the number one reducer or even killer of imposter syndrome.
Yep.
And when you know that you can get somebody to where you're defining, you can get them that payoff, you literally will never experience imposter syndrome in that regard.
Yeah.
You may feel it differently, like being in a room with people who have done the thing that you're desiring to do. You might feel it in other spaces, but in the context of building a coaching offer, no, you should not feel imposter syndrome. You should feel confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you've eat, slept, and breathed it. You know
Right.
this. I mean, you
Right.
know this.
You've lived it.
We have we have such simple payoffs inside of the community. We have such simple payoffs in the blueprint. We have such simple payoffs in our 10K coaching challenge. I mean, we have such simple payoffs that we know that when you step into that, we are able to get you there because again, we have done it. So we know what the payoff is. Just let's transition though, because sometimes we watch coaches, they start to create clarity in that payoff space, but they don't know the difference between a deliverable and an outcome. Right? That
Oh,
that 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 can hang people up, and sometimes they default to the wrong one, and we watch
yeah.
that countless times.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the reason they default to a deliverable is a lack of confidence. I mean,
Yep,
that's true, and a lack of clarity on the payoff. And so if we're talking about, payoff in the concept of Maslow and deliverables versus outcomes in that, what you have to do is you have to think about where your people are, what are they looking to achieve, and what do they feel when they get there?
right.
What is that outcome?
Yep,
It is and so the reason we're defining the difference between that outcome and a deliverable is because most people are like, "Oh, well, you get this course, you get this PDF, you get this many hours with me, you get access to this GPT that I built, you get this, that, and the other." And those are the deliverables.
yep,
But none of those things, that list, is solving the problem specifically or stating the outcome that the person is going to have or feel when they're done.
yep,
And people don't buy lists. They buy emotions. They don't buy logically, they buy emotionally. And so if you're speaking to the logical side of them with a list of deliverables or products and services, then you're going to have a harder time inviting them into an opportunity to connect with you and your coaching business.
yep,
But if you're speaking to what they're feeling now and telling them that there's an end to that feeling or an ability to shift or transform that feeling,
yeah.
they're bought in all day, every day.
All day, every day, and I want you to hear that part there about the emotion, right? Because we have tendencies to build something elaborate, right? And it might have a payoff, and then you go into that selling of the deliverables. You
Hmm.
go into the selling of the deliverables versus the actual payoff that they're going to get, and that payoff usually is emotional. Let me share something here. I was actually in a deep dive call today with an incoming community member, and when I get to the last part of our deep dive discovery portion, there, I asked this question because I know what our payoff is, and I asked them when they articulate their payoff of what they're looking to build and then they describe all of the components that they get themselves. I asked this question: what do this the individual you see in the mirror, specifically achieve when you reach said payoff? And here's what he said. He said self-actualization. I can reach one level and I know I can go for more, but I get to buy this boat. I get to put time to pull the boat in this certain lake, go catch some certain fish, vacation packages. He wants to buy vacation packages that he doesn't know how he'll ever use to the point that when he dies, he'll have more vacation packages. Wants to work on the house, but he also wants to build a legacy. And the legacy is this emotional piece that is in the firefighter space that when he's gone, they will always think about him when it comes to lives that have been saved in the firefighter space. Okay,
Hmm.
why did I just share that? Because that was the emotional attachment that he had to achieving the desired goal, and we just got to be the payoff portion for him to go get that. And it
Hmm.
worked, right? This really, really worked. So outcome versus the actual deliverables is you got to get clear there.
Well, and the other piece of this, because again, we said we were going to talk about this in terms of Maslow language,
Yes.
is part of the reason I think people lean on deliverables now that we've defined those is because they don't have a attainable low Maslow language payoff
Yep.
for their outcome. So that's where we see people lean backwards on the products and services because they've used too high level language for their outcome. And that's why we spent an entire episode going through the levels with y'all because we know that how easy it is to speak to where you are or where you want to be going, not where you've been. And
Right.
that right there is the differentiator between those that are successful in this and those that are not, is understanding that your people are not standing next to you. They're below you on the mountain, and you need to speak to where they are, not where you are.
Well, and that goes back to Rory Vaden saying that you're most powerfully positioned to serve the person who you used to be,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
again, when you are using language that is to attract people to the payoff, you're using language that you would desire back when you were then 3 years, 5 years, 10 years ago.
Yeah. And we don't like to live in the past as humans. So I think
No.
that's why it's really hard. We're excited about the future. We're excited about bringing people along a journey to a better future. And so we don't love to sit with this idea of thinking about where we came from and what would we have desired or bought at that time.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and that right there is the secret sauce to all of this is not to speak about where you are or where you're going, but to speak to where you've been.
That's right.
And what were you desiring 2 years, 3 years, 5 years ago that you have since achieved?
Right.
And then tell people all about that.
That's right. Gosh, I can go all the way back to 2009 when I met John Maxwell for the very first time. And that was just at a Maxwell certification program. I didn't even know what that meant back in the time, right? All I knew was that John was going to be there. I'd read probably 2 or 3 of his books at that time, and I was like, "Whoa, I really want to go do this." And it was $5,000 at the time. I didn't have $5,000. I didn't know what I was going to do, but my coach at the time told me I had to go do it, right? And so the neat part about that is I look back and I say, "Wow, if I could have if I could tell myself now what that 2009 version of Adam to where he is in 2026 version of Adam, the relationship with John Maxwell and how important that really is, and then share that with the avatar of former Adam to
Mhm.
compress time to get into that world much faster. Oh, just this language is like this is gold. This is gold.
Yeah. Well, we're trying to make it easy, and I know, easy doesn't always mean it's simple. Like, doing the work of finding the past language is honestly really difficult.
It
I mean,
is.
Adam and I just spent 2 hours this morning talking about something, and it's been a conversation for the last 3, 4 weeks easily
I thought you were
because
gonna say 3 or 4 years because it sure does feel
well,
like 3 or
that
4 years.
too, but I wasn't gonna throw our relationship and the speed with which we operate under the bus that hard, Adam.
Sure. I did. I did. Because it's always a work in progress. It's
No,
always a work in
it
progress. Yeah.
really is always a work in progress because we are moving forward, so our perspective of the past changes. And so
Yes.
it constantly needs to be a reflection and reiteration because you have a new perspective.
Totally. And that's why, again, this won't mean much to the listeners who haven't gone through the blueprint. We have 4 phases in the blueprint, but each time you move to a different phase, you have to go back to phase 1
Yeah.
because you've got to re-identify the new version of yourself to know that you're continuing to scale your mountain and you're still at the top of your mountain, but maybe your mountain's got a little bit taller and
Mhm.
base camp has gotten a little bit further down. So that
Mhm.
language that you're using at a higher point of the mountain is not the same base camp anymore.
Well, the whole point is that you can't build on a rocky foundation or,
Yeah.
I think back to my Sunday school days and the I can't even remember the song, but it was like you build on sand versus build on a rock, you
Yep.
know, that concept. I wish I could remember that song. I'll have to go look it up later. And then it'll be stuck in my head for a week. But
Uh-huh.
that's the exact thing is too many people are building on a sandy, unstable foundation because they want to do something. They know they've got something, but they haven't done the work to figure out the language of where they're coming from. And they haven't built a solid foundation to then scale off of.
Right.
And so what we're telling you here is one, you have everything you need because you've already been there, done that.
Yep.
Two, the only thing that you have to do in the been there, done that reflection is figure out really easy language around it and then start talking about it and figuring out what language lands. But when you start with the end in mind and you start with the payoff, it makes it easier than trying to sit here and talk about parts and pieces and products and services that you don't even need to have built.
No. No.
And I think
Well,
I think that's a huge point that we should make here is that you need to be able to articulate your payoff way before you feel like you have an entire packaged product or service ready for the world.
Totally, so true. And that you were doing a good job there of sharing what happens if they're not fully ready, right? What happens if they're not really fully ready in the space of articulation to share their payoff, right? What happens
Yeah.
if they're not? And that right there was so, so good because you can share a payoff in bite-sized pieces.
Hmm.
Doesn't have to be this macro solve the world of hunger problem. It can
Yeah.
be a very small micro inside of your bigger macro problem solution cycle.
Well, we teach people, we call it the first chapter framework in our blueprint.
Yeah,
Not everybody is ready for the whole book of everything you've ever done or achieved in your life.
right.
They might want just the first chapter of it because that's where they are and they're ready to consume that quantity of information, not the whole book's worth.
Right.
Or they might not even be ready for that and they're just ready for the first sentence of the first chapter.
That's right.
And so I think a lot of imposter syndrome and frustration for people comes when they're trying to throw the book at everybody's face and say, you need to read this right now, buy the whole thing. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, people just need a little bit. They need a gateway drug into you and what you do and what your outcome is because they're not ready to live the last 3 years with you in a 1 hour coaching session.
Yeah, that's right. I can go back to some of my KW days being a team leader and then post that when I stepped into the coaching space and was just known as a recruiter and built the Art of Recruiting Facebook group, right? And did all these big things. But you know what sold? Was the very small little thing of how to recruit 15 people in a month, right?
Hmm.
That just that little itty bitty payoff. In the grand scheme of things, I wasn't telling them how I scaled to 3 of market centers. I wasn't telling them about recruiting bridge. I wasn't telling them about any of that stuff. It was that little itty bitty thing, right? Just that
Yeah.
little itty bitty thing. And that's what people desired. And they also desired. Now, here's the thing. With this payoff, you've got to realize that people are watching you
Hmm.
and people have been watching you and people have a perception of you. And if you step into an inauthentic payoff space, you're
Hmm.
actually missing an avatar. You're missing the avatar that's been watching you because
Yeah.
the people that have been watching you are probably your clients of tomorrow. But yet, if you go and do something silly, like Jess, if I wanted to start a coaching business on how to grow hair, no one's going to buy from me for a couple of reasons because they've watched
You
me
have
lose my hair
great
and I don't have any
eyebrows,
hair.
Adam.
Right?
Come
Yeah,
on.
I do have great eyebrows. But my point in all of that is simply that staying in your lane of payoff that people know you for in the beginning,
Hmm.
because you may not have passion in that space long term, but that's a whole nother podcast. In the beginning, when you want to identify the payoff, this makes it so much easier because then you can speak to the bottom of the mountain.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and here's the other thing that we've taught a lot of is you can't build in a silo.
No.
You have to talk about where you are, not where you're going. You have to speak from where you're standing and your feet are planted. But at the same time, you can't speak to yourself. Like you can't just talk to the mirror all the time. And so testing payoff language that's simple is the fastest way to get to a clear payoff.
Yeah.
And so if you stand where you are and you talk to the person who's right in line behind you, you're going to get a lot of feedback. And then you'll be ready to tell the person who's behind them and behind them and behind them in a sentence. And
Yes.
and anybody who's sitting here feeling frustrated or overwhelmed by payoff language and they feel like they need to have note cards because they're ready to like introduce themselves and they have 60 seconds and they don't know what to say in 60 seconds without a prompt,
Right.
that automatically means there's a problem. You
Okay.
need to be able to speak to who you want to talk to clearly and articulately, simply.
Yep.
And if you need prompts and note cards, there's a problem.
Big problem. Big problem. Okay. So let's land the plane here and let's just share with them why focusing on one offer, right?
Well,
One offer.
it's easy. It's because when you have clarity on how you help people and you offer one thing, nobody gets confused because they feel like it's too complex.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if Jess does this or Jess does that or Adam does this or Adam does that. If you only are known for one thing, like Adam mentioning recruiting earlier, then you are the go-to person when somebody goes, "Oh, yeah, you stepped into a new recruiting role in this organization. You really need to meet Adam. You need to follow Adam. You need to consume Adam's content. Like, Adam is the recruiting expert."
Yep.
Something like that is what you need to figure out how you want to be known for. And it makes everything else easier if you can clearly say your payoff and you're known for your payoff.
Yep. Now, one thing I will challenge the listeners on is when you have when you have clearly identified the avatar
Hmm.
and you've clearly identified what you can solve in the form of a payoff, does your avatar need more payoffs? Probably, maybe.
Yeah.
Can you offer that? Yeah, probably, maybe. But if you offer more than one payoff, remember, confused people do nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. No one's going to buy from you if you have multiple payoffs. You have to have a single payoff in the beginning that lands in their problem area that you can solve because you've done it. Just one. I had someone send me something this past week, and they simply said, "Hey, I'm going to go down this path." They built a website, they've done all these things. And I get to the offer page, and it says offer at the top, right? And there was like 4 or 5 different ones. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm confused. Which one do I choose? And the individual said, well, this is all for one avatar. I said, but which one do I go to? Well, they get them all, but they can choose which one they want. I was like, no, confused people do absolutely nothing. Have one. And that's why we're talking about this right now is literally one offer focus is where you should be. One payoff offer focus is where you should be.
Well, and you said it perfectly. You start with one. And that's why I
Yep.
like the first chapter framework concept
Yes.
is it's not that you're not going to teach them the whole book along the way, but they need to go chapter by chapter. They don't need to be given all the chapters and said choose your chapter and like a choose your own adventure situation because they might be doing things out of order. They
Yeah.
might be doing things without the right context or anything like that. And so when you can clearly sell the first outcome, and we talked about this in previous episodes, the confirmation bias. They're ready for the next payoff, and then the
Yeah.
next payoff, and then the
Yep.
next payoff when you deliver on what you promised the first time through. If
That's
you're
right.
trying to give them 6 payoffs to choose from and they choose one and they don't get the result, then there is no confirmation bias for them to continue on with you.
That's right.
And that is why we see coaches struggle with people pausing or canceling their membership quickly, not renewing a one-to-one contract or anything like that, is because that person didn't feel that they got the result they originally invested in,
That's right.
and they don't feel like they need to return.
That's right. Yep. That's very true. So let's land this plane, Jess. That was good. That was, again, the definition of payoff related to Maslow. And next session, next podcast, let's talk about messaging, right? Let's talk
Mm.
about the actual messaging inside of this. So, again, we have clarity on the mountain. We got the top of the mountain. We've got the identified. Is it 5 steps? 5 steps? Let's see here. One, two,
I don't
three,
know.
four, five.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we've got
five,
5
five
levels
levels.
in
5 levels inside of Maslow. And we just identified the payoff. Now we're going to identify the messaging that aligns with that payoff on the mountaintop. Ooh, this
Yeah.
is going to be
So
fun.
we're gonna talk about how you share your payoff with the
That's right.
public. How do
Yep.
you turn around and talk to the person in line behind you? And that's
So,
the next
yeah,
episode. Yeah.
that is the next episode. So, Jess, I want to do this. Will you all invite them to our offer? Invite them to our offer of our challenge. Yes, let's do that because this is really fun. You can see exactly how we do what we do, and this can help you in this space of identifying your own payoff.
Right. So we have a challenge that's built over 3 days to help
Yes,
people actually name their payoff, define the messaging around it, and package and sell it efficiently and quickly. So this challenge is great for anybody who either hasn't coached before and you're looking to figure out where to get started, or it works really well for somebody who has been coaching, but maybe you were coaching inside an organization or for a brand or a person, and you are looking to simplify and streamline in your own unique space. So
yes,
you're ready to build something for yourself. And that's what Adam and I have built our entire, model around, from everything we talk about on this podcast all the way up to our membership. Our goal is to help you build what you feel called to and what you have already done and your expertise, your knowledge, your passion, right? And
Yes.
so if you want to build from that space, then our challenge is the way to go. And you'll find all that information at ilovecoachingco.com/challenge.
Yep. That's right. So go register and we will see you on the next episode. See you, Jess. See you. Bye.
Bye.